A friend of mine asked me the other day, had I ever made a kissing horse head horseshoe heart thing? And I said, no, I haven't. Might be worth having a go. It suddenly occurred to me, I've been working with horses one way or another for over 45 years, quite a bit over 45 years, and I've never made a horse head of any description. So I suddenly thought, well, I better have a go. But as usual, I've no idea how to start. So what do? Good old internet, get on YouTube, searched around, put in how to make horse's head, had about half a dozen hits come up, weeded out the rubbish and had a good look at about 3 different videos, different people, all making 2D horse heads, and they all have the same sort of methodology. So it's all basically done in the same manner. I don't know who invented it in the first place. I can't for the life of me think that it's brand new. So I've had a quick look and a bit of practice, and this is the result. So let's crack on. Okay, so I'm starting with about 15 inches of inch quarter 25x6, bit of old flat scrap that I've had kicking about. Now I've got this block in here because I need some sharp edges. This project is much better with sharp edges. I've got a nice rounded one up here which is supposed to be there, but this edge here is normally sharp, but this is a bit moth eaten. I ought to grind it flat, so I'm using this instead. I've just got a bit of lead underneath it to stop it flapping about. So we can get it hot and give it a go. So I'm guessing it's about 7/8 of an inch on there, and then hit it half on, half off. I know that seems or sounds obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people don't realise that that's how you need to do it. Then just under half of what you've already done over the other edge, and then about the same again, 7/8 or maybe a little bit more over there. Now I'm using the rounded edge end of the hammer, and that's sort of essentially it. Just give it a quick bump on the bottom of what is the chin, but it's actually his lip, just to square it off a bit. Let's get it warm again. Now I'm going to go through these processes very slowly, or try to, so you can get an idea of what to do. Now I'm just thinning this neck out a little bit more. Now hold it sideways, rounded end of the hammer again. That's defining the back of the chin. Oh, no, it's not the back of the chin, back of the cheekbone. And then just moving it from one side to the other, and that is giving a nice definition to the back of the cheekbones. And do the same under the front. Hold it one-sided, then the other side, hitting with the rounded edge of the hammer, and then again off to the left, off to the right. I'm actually doing this a bit more than it really needs it. And now finally in the middle, that middle indentation, exactly the same. Move it from left to right, just gives a bit of definition. Now that looks nothing like a horse's head, but trust me, it will when it's finished. A stylised horse's head. Get it warm again. Now unfortunately, same old story, blasted camera isn't focusing again. I thought I'd set it on manual focus here, but obviously I hadn't. All I'm doing there really is levelling it out. Now what I want to do here is hit it down on the end of its nose, so I'm just going to cool it out so it doesn't damage it. I'll just bash it down, and that forms the neck. Basically it. So we're just about sort of there. We're just going to put some detail in now. The actual forging of the head is really quick. Right, tools I'm going to use. I've got my veining chisel, which is a sort of rounded, sharp chisel. Then I've got a blunt, real blunt old chisel. Again, slightly rounded, but very blunt. Then we've got the eye punch, which is just an oval hole punch. And then the nose punch, which I don't know whether you can wiggle it around so you can see. There you go. Yeah, it's sort of half round type punch, and that's all you need for the detail. So I've got it warm, get it flat so it sits nice and flat on the anvil. And start with the veining chisel and put in the mouth. I go from sort of bottom up, just a little bit more there. That's it. And then the ear, it's just above where the neck comes round. Now I've sort of almost cut that ear out. You don't have to, depending on what you're using the handle for, because it could be sharp and catch your hand, but I like the definition of the ear being out. And I'm just using the blunt chisel there to put in the stylised mane. Just going to get that a little bit warm again, flatten it out. Once you get the hang of these, you can do all this in very few heats. But so I'm doing it in quite a few just so you can get the idea. Again, it's half on, half off with the chisel, so that you get a bit of definite, well, not half on, half off, but hang it over a little bit, so it pushes. Oop, that's it, on the floor. You can see how quickly it bends the material when you're hammering. Just flatten it back out again. Yeah, I'm just hanging it half, or not half on, but a little bit off, so you get a bit more definition. Right, and the eye. Make sure I get it the right way up. And that goes about there. Well, it does in this firm. And then the nose punch, just right on the end, give it a little bosh, and that essentially in 7 minutes is done. You can see I've over exaggerated the features a little bit, but I don't think many people would dispute that that is a stylised horse's head. So I've given it a quick clean up with a wire brush. It will focus and catch the light properly. You'll see that that's pretty much what you want to aim for. Now usually on these videos I sometimes say this is the first time I've ever done this, so I don't really know what I'm up to. But I can't say it on this one because I've done half a dozen more, and these are the 4 best. This was the first one, too long, and I managed to slowly get it sort of shorter and shorter and better, and I think the last 2 are the best. I've changed the nose punch slightly, and there's another 3 or 4 in the scrap bin. So it did actually take me a few attempts to get it right. So back to the original one. Let's try and make something out of it. And I've always wanted a back scratcher, so I'm going to thin this down, leave a fat bit at the end which I can split and turn into prongs to scratch your back. So let's thin it out first of all. Get the bigger hammer on it. And this is going to take some time. This is where I could have done with a nice little power hammer. I'm actually bidding on one on eBay at the moment, power hammer, a Goliath, but some bugger keeps outbidding me. And it's down in Bristol, and I would absolutely love it, but if it goes up much more I'm not going to be able to afford it, because I've then got to pay to get it transported. Anyway, hey ho, that's the first heat. We've got a fair bit of moved metal. This is where you really got to give it some beans. Give it some beans and shift some metal. Don't let it get too fat that way, because you'll see what I've done, which I did let it get too fat. A bit later on you'll see there's a crease down the middle of it. It's because I let it get too wide before flattening it out again. But it does come out, so no real panic. It's peculiar how after all these years I suddenly realised I'd never made a horse head before. I'm just going to use the rounded end of the hammer over the beak and just tidy that transition between the horse head and the sort of shaft. Yeah, I've never, never even crossed my mind to make a horse head. I don't know why. You'd think it would have done. So it wasn't until this friend of mine mentioned about the horse heads I suddenly realised I hadn't actually ever done one. Well, you can see the sort of effect it's going to be. Just cooling that out a bit, because I'm going to turn it round now and hold it by the head, so I don't want to damage the head, so I'm making sure it's nice and cool. And turn it round again, get a big hammer on it. It's about a 4-pound club hammer, and you can see how you can really give it some beans and shift some material. But it does take its toll on your arms. And you can see there just about where I'm hammering now. When it turns over you might see the mark. Yeah, you can see the mark in the middle. Not on that side. If I turn it over again you'll see it. I've just got to try and straighten that out a little bit, that bit on the end. Actually I just want to go a little bit further on that. Right, this is an alternative. I could have slit down there with the hot set down both sides and actually just cut that bit away. That possibly would have been less strenuous, but it also has its pitfalls, and it's sort of, there you can see the line now, just about there where I'm hitting it. There's a crease. I will get it out. Yeah, sort of cutting it off has its pitfalls as well, so you don't gain any material, whereas this way, doing it this way, you actually gain material. So what started off as 14, 15 inches, whatever it was, I don't know what it'll end up as. I just want to do a bit more up here. And that again has its pitfalls, because you don't know what you're going to end up with. If you want to know exactly what you're going to end up with, then cutting it down with your hot set is probably a better way to go. So it swings and roundabouts. You've got to think what you're doing and what you want to achieve and what you want to end up with. I've got my littler hammer. This is only about 2.2 pound hammer. It's a kilo. You can see that's seamed down there now quite well, but I will get rid of it, trust me. I'm just doing that slightly on the diamond because it's going a little bit off square. If you find it going a little bit off square, just turn it slightly and hit it on the diamond, and that'll bring it back. It looks quite messy at the moment, but it will turn out nice. You know, you don't need to keep it perfect the whole time, but you don't want to let it get out of hand. If you let it get out of hand, it's so difficult to get back. If you keep it somewhere near, you can fiddle about with it at the end. Back on my rounding hammer. I don't know who called them rounding hammers. To me it's a shoe turning hammer. It's not a rounding hammer at all. We're getting there. I'm going to aim for about, I don't know, just under 3/8 square for that centre shaft. Maybe 5/16 square, 10mm, 8mm, 9mm maybe, somewhere around about there. It's not rocket science, it doesn't matter to be honest, but it's just what I feel comfortable with, what looks right. When I get fed up hammering the damn thing, you know, all those things are taken into consideration. A little slurp of cider. Oh, that's better. Alright, I'm nearly there I think. Can't be far off. I think I just want to turn it around and do that bit a little bit more. So I'm just going to pop her in the other way around. I'm a little bit fussy on things like this. It's got to look right. Doesn't matter whether it is right, but it's got to look right. And proportions, aesthetics I suppose it comes down to. If your eye likes the look of it, then it ain't far out. Basically the way I run my life. If the eye likes the look of it, it ain't far out. See, that's coming down quite nicely now. As it cools, that takes out the hammer marks, hammering as it's cooling. You see I've got rid of that crease now, that's gone. Make sure it's straight. Right, I'm just going to warm it up a little bit and just take the corners off. Doesn't need to be very warm for this, because you don't want to distort it too much. You just literally want to knock the corners off. I've got it a little bit hot, but I'm just running the rounded end of the hammer down there, all the way down. And then onto the beak. Sorry you can't see it. Just using the rounded edge right up in that junction where it meets the main of the head. And the same that way. Again, it's got a little bit out of straight, so straighten her back up again. And that's just about there, I think. It ain't going to be far out. So what I want to do now is just tidy up this end. This is going to be a bit long, so I'm going to have to cut a little bit off and split it up. I just want to try and tidy up the junction again, where the sort of centre shaft meets the what will be the fingers. I want to make sure it's up the centre for a start. And then I want to do, again, sorry you can't see it, on the beak, just on the rounded part on the beak, just to smooth off the transition. Now I discovered, see, that's pretty good, I discovered what was going wrong when I was practicing with all the horse heads that went in the bin. It was such a simple thing I was doing wrong. I was just hitting it too hard. That's all it was. And once I realised that, they started to work. Now I've just whipped off about 3/8 of an inch and whipped up them with the slitting disc. You know, you could do it with a hacksaw or a hot set. I'm just going to use a rubber hammer to open it up. Yeah, you could do it with a hot set or whatever, but hacksaw or slitting disc is just far neater. You get a much better result, really. You've got far less untidiness to tidy up from the hot set by doing it with a slitting saw or hacksaw. Now I'm going to keep these square. I did think about making them round, but I think it's just going to be so much easier to leave them square. It's quite tricky to get the others out of the way without distorting everything too much. You'll need to what have I lost now? Oh, I know. Remote control. Yeah, it's difficult to get the bit you want to work on in a position where you can heat it without overheating the other bits, the bits you don't want. It's a bit of a juggling act, but you get there eventually. Again, I've never made a back scratcher before. I always wanted one because I do suffer with an itchy back. I'm forever having to get the wife to come over and give my back a scratch, or get in the shower with a scrubbing brush and try and make it reach down. So this is going to be a real joy for me. Whether it'll work, we shall see. So what I'm trying to say is I've got no preconceived ideas as to how long I want these, how thin I want them, what sort of angle I want them at, what position I'm going to put them in. It's really hit and miss. You know, this is a one-off, this end. The horse's head, you know, as I've admitted, had practice. But this bit is all being thought out on the fly. Mind you, it's not exactly rocket science, is it? It's only splitting a bit of bar and trying to round them up or taper them out. Really, that's not going far enough up to split it, but it'll have to do. Let's get that middle one out the way. Bend it out the way. Now when you do that, you don't want to bend it too sharp, because you'll end up with creases in it, which you'll have a job to get out when you straighten it back out. So just sort of bend it round rather than hammer it sharply over the edge of the anvil. Because that can be a problem. Good little things, those rubber hammers. I used to use that when I was shoeing, before I found my decent, I don't know what you call it. It's a plastic hammer, the one I've got now, that I use for shoeing. Again, just drawing it gently out now. I'm just trying to see if they're about the same sort of length. Again, I could put a little chalk mark on the anvil, but I'm just doing it by eyeball, just so we can crack on. I don't want to be here all day. These heat up quite quickly, so there's no point me switching the video off like I normally do between heats. Almost there on this one. They'll just about be the same length. Yeah, they're looking pretty good. Take the edges off, all the corners. Right, that don't look bad. They're about the same now, so I'm just going to do that middle one, which in the position it's in at the moment is pretty tricky, because what I've got to try and do is stand it up in the forge so that it gets hot without burning the smaller ones that I've already tapered. You can see the problem. So it's a bit tricky trying to hold it up because my hand is directly above the fire with the tongs, so it's not easy, but we've done it, as you can see. Just had to cool it out again though, because the whole lot was getting hot because it's standing up bolt upright in the fire. You could always use this as a toasting fork. You could, instead of bending the forks, you can leave them straight and use it as a toasting fork. Do some crumpets over the fire, or marshmallows, or sausages, or whatever you like. But I really need a back scratcher. Sorry if this is dragging on a bit, but I wanted to try and make it almost in real time, which today it virtually is. I've trimmed very little off the video this week. Very little. I'm not sure quite how long this one is, just over half an hour I think. Right, I think we're just about there, so we can straighten them back out. I'll try to. And then we'll try and figure out what sort of configuration we're going to bend them in. Go back to a little hammer. Straighten it out. Now you see, if I had bent that sharply over the anvil, there'd be a nasty crease in there and that would have been difficult to get out. And now I can't figure out how to close them up without damaging the other one, so it's going to be a case of just do it however I can. Looks like a blooming, I don't know, bird's foot at the moment, like that. Alright, let's see if we can close it back up again without damaging anything. That's always the consideration. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, as you will all know from your physics lessons. So if you hit it on one side, you're going to get a dent on the other side, so you've always got to be very careful how you manage to get your end result, because you could end up with a nice bit one side and then complete rubbish the other side where you've damaged it. So that's always got to be in your mind. Whatever you're doing to the top side, you're also doing to the bottom side. Like now I'm rounding the top edge off, but I'm also rounding the bottom edge off. So that's got it all nice and straight. They all look pretty good. I'm just going to open them up again on the cutter. This time I'm not going to open them up anywhere near as far as before. And I only closed them up because I wanted to tidy everything up, because it had all got a little bit out of hand with spreading them all open. I just wanted to make sure everything was neat and tidy. And so I'm a little bit fussy with things like that. Alright, that's pretty good. It's fairly straight, it's up the middle. So I'm just going to gently bend these over. And again, I don't really want a sharp bend, but I don't want a huge radius on them, but aesthetically pleasing is what I'm looking for. which it ain't at the moment, but it's getting there. I think I might just sort of close it up a little bit. Get rid of that. See if we can just bend them round a little bit more. Pull it back because we get a dent. Now, I'm not happy with that, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put it in the vise, and I know a lot of you won't have this facility, but it can still be done with the forge, but I'm going to do it with the gas. You know, it's one of those things, you've got the tools, you might as well use them, but if you haven't, then you could still stick it in the forge, warm it up, quickly stick it in the vise and pull it round with the pair of pliers or tongs or whatever. So I'm just going to warm this up. If I can get the gas working right. There we go, that's better. A bit more oxygen on it. Warm it up and just pull it to where I want it. With a pair of tongs. It's just so much easier sometimes than trying to do it with your hammer. You know, as no one says everything has to be done by hammer. There's no rules to this. You do what gets the results. And sometimes little jobs like this, tweaking them about by hand is just so much easier in the long run. Now that middle one is going to, by its nature, be longer because the two outer ones have been spread, so you've lost a little bit of their length by spreading them out sideways. So what I will have to do is probably make the middle one come down a little bit, if you understand what I mean. Come towards me where it is at the moment. Come out towards us to get the same length the other way, if you understand what I mean. I want them all to be even lengths when they're scratching my back. I don't want one longer than the other, or the others, which the centre one at the moment you can just about see is, which I've just discovered, I think that's what I've just seen. So what I'm going to do is pull it out a little bit. There we go, so it's a little bit longer, and then bend it back in again, and then just push it down a little bit. So now it's about the same length on my skin, or will be hopefully, but it's just a little bit longer downwards, if you understand what I mean, towards me, where I'm sitting now. Alright, see if I can get this to focus. Zoomed in a little bit too much. Right, I think that's going to focus. You can just about see now that they're damn near the same length. Pretty good. Good enough for me. So, just going to give them a bit of a clean up. But before I do that, I'm going to finish off with a little twist in the middle. Nothing fancy. Just a straightforward twist. So I'm just going to hold it in the vise, and because I can't get a twisting die or dog on this, I'm just going to use my spanner. I can't use a dog because I can't get it on top or bottom, because obviously we've got a horse head one end and a scratch at the other end. This will do. So it's nothing fancy, this job. 2 turns. That should just finish it off nicely. Give it a little bit of, what's the word, a little feature in the middle of it, make it not quite so plain. I'm just going to straighten it out a little bit in the vise. I don't normally do it like this. I normally hit it with a wooden mallet or a lump of wood on another lump of wood, but I haven't got any kicking about at the moment, so I'm just going to quickly do it like that. It's not too far out of square, so I'm not going to worry. So, quick clean up with a wire brush. You can see instantly how that shines that up, takes all the scale off. Move up to the head. Same up there. And that, as they say, is just about that. One horsehead back scratcher. So there we go. Nothing fancy, but I think you'll agree it's quite interesting. A very simple little job, really. You can see there just about that the middle one was longer. There, you can see it. See how it sticks out. But there you go. Nice little project. Could be a nice little gift for somebody, or just for yourself to scratch your back while you're sitting watching the telly. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.